Welcome to the Secure Circle Show, where we empower you with the knowledge to protect yourself against fraud, identity theft, and cyber threats. In this podcast, we delve into the critical issues surrounding cybersecurity in our increasingly digital world. Each episode features insightful discussions, expert interviews, and actionable tips that will help you and your loved ones stay safe online. From understanding the latest scams to learning how to secure your personal information, our goal is to create a community that prioritizes cybersecurity. Whether you're a seasoned tech enthusiast or just starting your journey to online safety, the Secure Circle Show is here to guide you. Let's jump in.
Welcome back to the Secure Circle Show.
Great to be here.
Today, we're going deep. We're looking back at, one of the biggest identity theft cases ever in the U.S. It's a story that really shows the cracks, in the systems that are supposed to protect our most sensitive info.
It really does. And what's fascinating, or maybe alarming, is where it came from. Not some shadowy international hacker group, but right from the inside, an insider threat.
Yeah, an exploitation from within at this pretty ordinary company. It's a huge reminder that security isn't just about firewalls and tech, right?
Absolutely. It's about people, access, procedures,
right.
The whole picture.
So for this deep dive, we've dug into some key sources. We've got news reports from MSNBC.com, the Associated Press, mostly from around 2002, 2003.
In a really revealing press release from the Department of Justice, they all detailed this case, the story of Philip Cummings, and this massive identity theft ring he was involved in.
And for everyone listening to the Secure Circle Show, this is what we do. Looking at these past breaches helps us understand the threats we still face. We've talked about prevention in episode 1.
Right, our Identity Theft Prevention 101.
And then recovery in episode 2, how to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, how to recover your identity, crucial stuff.
And even, specific scams like in episode 3 on elder fraud. This case today, it's different, but it hits those same core vulnerabilities.
Exactly. It all ties together, the fundamentals of protecting data and understanding access risks.
Okay, so let's get into it. Philip Cummings. What makes this case still resonate 2 decades on? It's the source of the breach, isn't it? And just the incredible number of people affected.
Totally. Tens of thousands of victims, and the estimated losses, somewhere between $50 and $100 million. It's staggering.
And the source. Not a master hacker, but
yeah.
Who was he?
Right. This is the core of the insider threat aspect. Philip A. Cummings. He worked at a help desk. Just, a regular help desk job at this small software company on Long Island. Teledata Communications, Inc.
Okay, Teledata. What did they do exactly?
Well, they supplied these things called credit prompter boxes. Think about maybe a car dealership or an apartment rental office.
Oh yeah, those little terminals they use to run your credit.
Exactly. So Teledata provided the tech, the pipeline really, for businesses to pull credit reports.
Okay, so Cummings is on the help desk there. From mid-1999 to March 2000, the reports say. What kind of access does that give you? It sounds like it turned out to be way too much.
Way too much. His job involved supporting the clients using these systems. And that meant he had access to their confidential usernames and passwords, the actual credentials they used to log into the big credit bureaus.
Wait, not just Teledata's internal system. He had the keys to Equifax, Experian, TransUnion.
Yep, all three. The direct access codes for Teledata's clients. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about the security implications.
That is. Wow, just sitting there on the help desk, you have to question the protocols back then.
You really do. And here's the kicker. When Cummings left the company in March 2000, he didn't just leave. According to the DOJ, he took a spreadsheet with him.
A spreadsheet?
A spreadsheet listing these critical access codes, usernames, passwords, the keys to the kingdom, essentially.
Unbelievable. On a spreadsheet, today that would set off so many alarm bells.
Oh, absolutely. It seems incredibly lax now. But it highlights how things have changed, or maybe needed to change. An FBI agent on the case, Kevin Barrows, pointed out that basically any help desk person there had this kind of access. They could potentially just download reports wholesale.
So he walks out with the crown jewels on a file. What happens next? How does this turn into this massive fraud scheme?
Well, it took a little while. The scheme really got going in the spring of 2001, so about a year after he left Teledata. He teamed up with accomplices, and they started using these stolen credentials to impersonate legitimate companies. They'd pretend to be Ford Motor Credit, who was a real client with real access needs.
So they log in as Ford, basically,
Oh.
and start pulling credit reports.
That's the gist of it. And it wasn't just Cummings, there was a whole network. A key figure was a guy named Linus Baptiste. He later pleaded guilty.
What was Baptiste's role?
He's like the middleman. He'd apparently get these wish lists, that's what the authorities called them, from street criminals, lists of names, social security numbers.
So specific targets, people these other criminals wanted information on.
Exactly. Cummings and Baptiste would use the stolen logins, pull the reports for those names, and then sell the reports.
How much did they sell them for?
About $60 a pop, apparently,
Right.
which they'd then split.
$60? Again, doesn't sound like a fortune per report, but when you scale it up,
That's where it becomes huge. The authorities estimated at least 33,000 consumers had their reports stolen this way. And the resulting identity theft, the actual fraud committed using that info, that's where the $50 to $100 million damage estimate comes from.
33,000 people. It's hard to even comprehend the ripple effect on all those lives.
It really is. Financial ruin, credit nightmares, just immense disruption.
So how was the information actually used? What did the criminals do with these reports?
James Comey, who was the U.S. attorney at the time, laid it out pretty clearly. They'd use the info to drain bank accounts. They'd change mailing addresses on accounts.
Oh, so the real person wouldn't even get the statements showing the fraud.
Right. Then they'd order new checks, new ATM cards, new credit cards, have them sent to drops, unauthorized addresses. And maybe worst of all, they'd open brand new lines of credit in the victim's name.
And just max them out immediately, I bet.
Exactly. Run up huge debts, trash the victim's credit score. It's a nightmare scenario we touched on in episode 2 about recovery. The sheer work involved for the victim is immense.
Just cleaning up that mess. Were there specific examples mentioned in the reports? Cases that stood out?
Yeah, they highlighted one particularly awful case. An elderly woman. She only had about $1,000 in her bank account.
Okay.
The criminals managed to withdraw $35,000 using her identity.
$35,000 from an account with only $1,000? How does that even work?
It shows the lengths they'd go to, opening fraudulent lines of credit, manipulating things. It's just brazen and utterly devastating for her, obviously.
Absolutely devastating. And this wasn't just a local New York thing, right? You said it was a network.
No, definitely nationwide. The authorities said at least 20 people were involved across the country, distributing and using the stolen data. It shows how quickly this kind of information can spread through criminal networks.
So how did this whole thing finally get discovered? 33,000 victims, millions of dollars. Something must have tripped an alarm eventually.
It did. Actually, it started with Ford Motor Credit noticing weird things in their billing from Experian.
Ah, the company they were impersonating.
Right. They were getting charged for way more credit report lookups than they were actually doing. Plus, they started getting calls, complaints from people saying, hey, I'm a victim of identity theft, and it looks like it originated with access through you guys.
So the victim speaking up combined with the company spotting billing errors. That makes sense.
Exactly. And as Experian looked into Ford's account, they realized the problem was bigger. They found other companies' credentials, their subscriber codes were also compromised and being misused.
Who else got hit?
It was a pretty long list. Washington Mutual Bank, Dollar Bank, some finance companies, a health center in Illinois, Sarah Bush Lincoln Health Center apartment complexes, even an energy supplier in Texas. It just shows how many different access points Cummings allegedly walked away with.
Yeah, that spreadsheet must have been quite something. So once Ford and Experian flagged it, how quickly did things move? What was the timeline for arrests?
Things started moving in late 2002. Linus Baptiste, the middleman, was arrested in October. Around that same time, another guy involved in using the data, Hakeem Mohammed, pleaded guilty.
Okay.
And then, in November 2002, they arrested Philip Cummings himself. That's when the criminal complaint against him was unsealed, and the full scope started becoming public.
So discovery to arrest happened over a few months, seems like. What happened to Cummings legally?
He pleaded guilty relatively quickly, actually, in September 2002, before his arrest became public, I think. He pleaded to conspiracy, wire fraud, and fraud related to identity documents. Serious charges.
And the sentence.
In December 2002, he got 14 years in federal prison.
14 years. That's a significant sentence. It sends a message about how seriously the courts viewed this. What did the judge say?
The judge, U.S. District Judge George B. Daniels, called the damage almost unimaginable. He talked about how easy it seemed for Cummings to just wreak havoc on thousands of people's lives, really emphasized the vulnerability of individuals.
Yeah, unimaginable damage is right. We talked about the financial cost, but the human cost.
Yeah.
What did the victims say?
It's heartbreaking. One victim, Barbara Cusimano, talked about the nightmare of just trying to report the fraud, dealing with banks, credit bureaus, And the feeling afterwards, this like lingering paranoia, it really messes with your sense of security.
That's something we hear a lot, that long-term emotional impact. It's
Yeah.
not just about the money. It's a deep violation.
Totally. And it takes so much time and energy to fix, even if you eventually get the fraudulent debts cleared. We covered some of that in our recovery episode, episode 2.
Right. I remember reading Cummings tried to get a lighter sentence, something about health problems.
Yeah, his defense team argued for leniency because he had serious heart problems, maybe needed a transplant, but Judge Daniels wasn't having it. He basically said the severity of the crime, the sheer number of victims, it outweighed his personal health issues in terms of sentencing.
A tough stance, but understandable given the scale.
Yeah.
What was law enforcement saying publicly at the time, Comey and the FBI?
U.S. Attorney Comey really stressed that identity theft wasn't some minor issue, that they were going to prosecute it vigorously. And Kevin Donovan, the FBI assistant director, had this great analogy.
Oh, yeah.
He compared Cummings to an insider giving criminals the key to the bank vault, but using 21st century technology, highlighting how tech enables these massive crimes.
That's a good way to put it. The insider's the key. Technology is the method.
And they also emphasized that the investigation wasn't over just because Cummings was sentenced.
Oh.
They were still going after the wider network, the people who actually used the stolen data.
Right. The 20 or more people involved nationwide. It was a big operation to unravel.
Definitely. It wasn't just one guy with a spreadsheet. It was a whole ecosystem feeding off that initial breach.
So bringing it back to us here at the Secure Circle show, and for everyone listening, looking back at this case, what are the big security lessons? Even though tech is different now, what still applies?
Oh, so much. Number one, I think, is the insider threat. It's still a massive issue. You have to monitor and control who has access to what, even seemingly low-level employees?
Yeah, that principle hasn't changed at all.
Not one bit. Second, the absolute need for strong security protocols around sensitive data. I mean, a spreadsheet of access codes, that's a huge failure. Think about encryption, access controls, logging, stuff we talked about in episode 1 on prevention.
Right, the basics done right are still fundamental.
Absolutely. And third, just the sheer potential for damage when credentials like that are compromised. It underscores the responsibility companies have to protect customer data.
So the Cummings case, yeah, it's over 20 years old, but it's still this, like, flashing red light warning us about insider risk and the devastation of ID theft.
Couldn't agree more. Technology evolves, the methods might change slightly, but the core risks, they're still right here with us. Maybe even amplified in some ways with how connected everything is now.
And that really drives home why we do this show, right? Why understanding prevention from episode 1, knowing the recovery steps from episode 2, even being aware of specific tactics like we discussed in episode 3, it's all connected. It's about building layers of security and awareness for yourself.
Exactly. And we really hope these deep dives help you, our listeners, do just that. Protecting yourself takes knowledge and vigilance.
Definitely. So please, if you find these discussions valuable, follow the Secure Circle show, share it with your friends, your family, anyone you think could benefit. Spreading awareness helps everyone.
It really does make a difference. The more people understand the risks, the harder it is for criminals.
So let's leave you with a final thought for today. Thinking about the Cummings case, how might a similar insider threat play out today? With everything online, cloud accounts, interconnected systems, what are the modern equivalents of that stolen spreadsheet? What keys unlock even more data now?
That's a sobering thought to consider. The potential impact could be even greater now.
Something to definitely mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a really significant piece of identity theft history.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay safe out there.